I like the music.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Balochi music by one of the persons. He's an amazing singer called Noor Bakshi. He's around 70 years old. Really incredible.
Wow.
I think the instrument he plays is tambura, something like that. A very old Balochi instrument.
I like it. Um, Something seems to have gone wrong with my Zoom, so I'm going to log out and log in again.
Sure,
I
sure.
don't know what's happened.
Welcome everyone. We'll wait for others to come in. Please enjoy the music in the meanwhile. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the community of practice on climate resilient and climate conscious education. My name is Ajay Pinjani, and I'm really happy and eager to be your host today and for this community of practice, among other hot partners within our organization. It'll be lovely to know who's joined us. Please drop in the chat. What's your name, the organization you're joining from? Will be really, really lovely to know who's in the space, sharing the space. It's okay if you're driving right now and you cannot pop it in the chat. That's fine. If you're not driving and in a stable place where you can pop in, it'll be lovely, lovely to know that. So, welcome to 2026 as well. Um, I'll share briefly about the Global Schools Forum. Most of you would be familiar with our work. We've been here for many years now. Our vision is as clear as all of yours as well, that all children realize their potential through safe access to quality education. Our mission has always been to support educational organization both in low and middle income country context, to deepen impact, achieve scale through stronger know-how and smarter funding and system level partnerships. That speaks a lot about our strategy as well, which I'll be briefly speaking about. We, with all of your support, have reached today to 183 organizations across 70 countries. All of you are serving together so many children. It's again tiring, challenging, and rewarding as well. So that's where we come in, try to support and create enabling spaces and learn with each other and through each other. Our GSF strategic priorities were launched again this last year, the new ones. And again, at the heart of it has always been the community. And we hope to play the role of a community convener where we can bring organizations together, develop those relationships, and nurture those trust, which is already there, and convert that into collaboration or local content. We can convert that into global repositories across thematic fronts. So we support understand that fund challenges, especially in education, and believe in the power of connecting with funders, creating opportunities where organizations can meet each other and partner both individually, but also at the government level, and also are supported with the funder networks, which are available and accessible and can be strengthened over time. Shortly about the community of practice. Uh, we really are about building connections. The community of practice has been a part and parcel from the very beginning. And as a role of a convener, we believe that bringing organizations together can create a lot of spark when we build those connections, peer learning opportunities, and alignment many a times in contextualization of resources and the wealth of wisdom which is already in this space. We have more than 40 plus organizations who've opted to register for this community of practice as well. And the work had started much earlier than that. I'll be introducing those thought partners as well and getting to know you most importantly. So a COP often brings together a group informally bound by shared expertise and passion which you all hone to collaborate towards a different thematic fronts. This is the first time we are inviting ourselves into the space of climate action. We've worked on different fronts, but climate has been something which is affecting all of us dearly and direly, and something which we wanted to work and collaborate together. So really looking forward to how this journey takes ahead. What we are looking forward to in today's session is to introduce the thought partners who have worked with us throughout in creating and curating and designing this community of practice. Many of them are present in the room as we speak. Share insights from the annual meeting, which we had in Nairobi in November, in October last year, and time flies by. And in that, we had a plenary on climate, and it was really followed by a survey, a need assessment survey, which many organizations, almost 37 organizations, filled in and shared their needs and contextualized demands. And we would like to highlight those as well as we take this community of practice further. We also, within our thought partner framework, created a receiver responder framework that becomes a guiding instrument of how we want to channelize this community of practice. So we would love to take your reflections on that. We would love to reflect on climate change beyond education as well. So we'll present a bit on that and then discuss the goals of the community of practice. And most importantly, we want to keep a bigger chunk of today's meeting on understanding your context, understanding your leadership gaps, and the opportunities which are present in front of us, which can really come up and alive through the community of stakeholders, which are as global and as diverse as you all are. So most important is to get to know you today. If you can, unmute yourself and speak at that point in time, use the chat box. We also have curated an exercise, a couple of them for you. So that's where we would love to hone that. I'll take it further. Chiara, I believe you have the hosting rights now and ready with the breakouts later on. Perfect. Thank you. But before I move on, we are really grateful for your presence. We've often and always seen that your openness has created magic, and it is very easy today to be distracted and thereby an invitation and an encouragement to have an undivided attention, because we've seen that when you have an undivided attention, a lot is possible, like in the classrooms, which you often run in schools. So if you have anything switched on right now, unless that's really very important, like Priya is driving right now, that's completely fine. Don't leave your handle. But otherwise than that, just be here fully as much as possible, and that will bring a lot of spark out. So thank you. With that, some realities which we all are familiar with, they came out in the need assessment survey as well. They were surfaced in the annual meeting session as well. These are reports from 2024, but I'm sure 2025, as we have witnessed, has been a tough year with global conflicts, many other challenges. And climate also has become something which we cannot just say it has nature driven. I think a lot to do with all of us creating that challenges as well. And it has disrupted learning in 85 countries and more than that in 2025. Heat waves, among other climate hazards, have disrupted schools. South Asia has been one of the hardest hit as well. And as we see a lot of these things, where education as a responder is sometimes very limited, because even at a policies level, at national level, local level, only 39% of the countries we have across the globe have national laws and policies for climate change education. What does that say about something which we are all dwelling together? Is that climate disruption is no longer just an environmental issue, it is an education systems issue. You've helped us highlight that in the survey as well. And today we would love to deep dive into your context and understand how can this community be of use and be resourceful for each other as we continue to dive into the parts and our context with all the passion and intent and the challenges we have. Before we jump into that, before we dive deeper into our need assessment survey and what have we learned from you, we would love for you to speak to each other. What we'll do is, in 5 minutes, it'll be difficult today to have all the introductions openly, as much as we would have loved to have these open coffee spaces for 40 minutes, which we do in our annual meets. Right now, we'll try to do brief justice by having one breakout room where you will be for 5 minutes with another person, the person you may not know, but the person shares similar opportunities and challenges and struggles and life priorities. So if you can share with them, what does your weather look like right now? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, not in the moment to come, but right now, how do you feel? And if it is something which you want to talk about, how you feel within yourself rather than the weather outside, please do not stop yourself from doing that. It'll be really lovely for the other person and you to get to know each other very briefly. Chiara, once we are ready, we'll open the breakouts.
So most of you are going to be 2 people, but there might be some breakouts with 3 people. So just be mindful of that time. And then this is going to be for 5 minutes, right? Great. All right, off you go. Just a reminder, if you haven't done so yet, if you can just add to your name in Zoom your organization, that would be great. I can see some people have done that already. It's great to see you, Abhishek from Asman. Really glad that you made it. You're on mute, Abhishek.
Hello, thank you. It's a pleasure being here, and finally we joined. And as per our last discussion, it's good to know about climate change and this education things, so we can learn and relate a lot in our ongoing and upcoming projects.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Abhishek. I'm really curious what weather came up. Does we have time to hear maybe one or two voices if there was an internal weather shared or an external weather shared?
I think we shared both external and internal. I shared my Nepal's weather, and I came to know about what the weather is in UK back in London there. So it's very cold in Nepal. Right now it's a middle winter, and I think it's mm, cold, chilly, and raining in London. That's what he said.
Wonderful, wonderful. We can hear from one more person who would like to share. Yes, Brian.
Suja here from India, southern part of India. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Yeah, so this is Suja. I'm a professor, and I got to share my room with Wahab from Ghana. And we talked about the weather there. He said it is very windy and dusty and warm, and it causes a lot of respiratory diseases. He said it's not pleasant at all. And for us in southern part of India, Tamil Nadu, where we are now, it's kind of very pleasant. Though for me it's a little cold, but it's a pleasant weather. A little windy, of course, but it's a very pleasant weather. So that's what we shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Suja. Thank you, Abhishek. And thank you, everyone, for giving yourself the opportunity and the other the opportunity to get to know each other very briefly, at least. Hopefully, in this community of practice and through this community of practice, we will get to know each other much more. And through that, much more about each other's context as well, which in itself can be rewarding and challenging as well. I will share my screen again. I would love to introduce the thought partners who have helped us reach where we are, because even at this community of practice where we started, we've gone through an annual meet session in Nairobi. Before that, around 4 to 5 months of conversations when we started our need assessment survey earlier of what our community needs are. And climate was one of the first which was highlighted. And that's where we created focus group discussions and thinking about what can we do together. Again, we are at a very, very small starting point. But I think if we continue to take these small steps together, there's a lot which is possible, at least having a community and feeling not alone in the kind of work we do. That in itself could be a privilege, which we've seen many a times across these years at GSF. So, who are those people who really helped us in the beginning to now? Initially, we generally use organization names, but I was speaking to Chiara and I was saying, maybe it's really important to highlight that individual. Sometimes that individual gets hidden in the organization and sometimes vice versa. But wanted to thank Sam from Link Education, Joel from TSEC, Lanre from Seed, Chiara from GSF, she's here, Sanchi from Kizazi, Shweta from Earth Warriors, Elizabeth from TSEC again, and Ilani from Peace and earlier part of Impact Network. I'll pause there and I wanted maybe Sam, if you would like to share a bit about yourself, about why you joined the Community of Practice Working Group and what your hopes are.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Sam. I'm the Executive Director of Link Education International. We're based in Edinburgh in Scotland, where it's very rainy and not very pleasant. But we work very closely with partners in Uganda, Malawi, and Ethiopia. So we do support work here, fundraising, a lot of fundraising to support our activities in the countries we work in. We're an education only organization. So look at system strengthening, girls' education, inclusion, children with disabilities, teacher training, school leadership, and climate resilience. So climate resilience has been quite a new activity for us. We've had some funding recently from the Scottish Government, and we're in a consortium delivering lots of activities around building resilience to climate change, which includes agricultural and livelihoods and water and various other initiatives. But we're looking at the climate change piece and working with the government to support or build more resilient schools. And that's through school improvement planning, disaster risk management clubs, emergency responses to climate events, and various other activities, which I'd be really happy to share with others at another time. What really inspired me to join this community of practice was that we only do a very small part of building schools for climate resilience. And there's many other activities that are equally as important in supporting the education sector to build resilience. We know education is really key to building resilience to climate change. We know climate change is impacting everybody across the world. So, and we all work in slightly different contexts, but there must be activities that we're all doing that will be resonant for the areas we're working in. So I'm really keen to learn much more from others to see how what other people are doing can be relevant for our partners in the countries that we work in. And just to learn a lot more from other people. That's my main motivation for joining. It's a really interesting and important piece of the puzzle to be more resilient going forward in this changing world. And I'm just really looking forward to learning more from other people.
Thank you so much, Sam. I can see Lanre in the room as well. So, Lanre, maybe if you want to share one hope you have from this community of practice, since you've been a voice with us through and throughout.
Can you see me?
I can.
Hi, everyone, and greetings from Lagos, Nigeria, where I shared that our weather is confused at the moment. We're supposed to be experiencing harmattan, which is unique to West Africa. We call it the brown winter, where dusty winds blow from the Sahara. But in my 43 years of existence, this is the first time ever it's going to be raining in January. So yeah, I'm here because a lot of these climate changes and all that is happening is affecting the education sector. And I really want to learn, how everyone is dealing with it around the world. I want to really, I hope for this group to be able to come up with something that would work for every single child so that no weather event or no climate challenge would affect their ability to continue to learn. So that's the core motivation. That's my hope. And I hope that happens for all of us. So greetings from Seed Care and Support Foundation. And I'm excited to see in the chat that we're truly a global community of practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lanre. You've always been such an incredible supporter and a voice which is cherished and also a lot to learn from. I'll hand it over to Chiara. Chiara, before you share about the annual meeting and what we've learned, and from all the organizations who've shared so much from the needs assessment survey, maybe share just in one line or two line about your nature-driven purpose, which you've often highlighted, and that gave us a guiding instrument to framework, which I'll share later. But yeah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is such a highlight for me to be here. We've been working towards this community of practice for a few months with Ajay. And when I joined GSF, I thought, okay, I need to be now focusing on education, which is so important. But in my personal life, so much of my passion is about the natural world as well. And as ultimately the only home that we've got and the only sort of support system that gives us so much, enables us to live, enables us to breathe and drink water and have food. And so one of my big driving motivations is how can we create a relationship with nature that honors that and that is reciprocal, that we recognize what it gives us and we are looking after it as a way of having a better relationship with the world around us. And when I started speaking to Ajay about his work, and I learned this community of practices coming together and how this topic is increasingly relevant, to the world of education, I immediately jumped on the opportunity and decided to support him in working on this community of practice. For me, it's a really, really big passion. How do we merge these two worlds? Education has so much hope and promise for the future of designing a more resilient, better, sustainable world, and at the same time is so severely disrupted by our current situation. So I think it's just such a critical topic to be talking about these two sides. How do we protect education and how we ensure that we use leverage education to forge a better relationship with the natural world so we can all thrive into the future. So really privileged to be here. And really excited to hear about your work that you're doing on the ground around this and the impact we can achieve together. Can you share the slides, Ajay? Thank you, thank you,
They are
thank
shared.
you. All right. A couple of insights from our session that we ran on climate education during our annual meeting in October in Nairobi. We talked about a couple of key themes that came out of this, which is what do we need? And some of these that were highlighted was that we need localized policies and plans that are climate responsive to school calendars, that allow schools to adapt to climate change. Also sort of adaptation plans and response plans of kind of what to do when disruptive climate events hit. How do schools respond to that, this sort of planning phase? And that needs to be really locally responsive and adapted. Another need that was highlighted was to amplify the community voice and internal local knowledge, which we really hope we will be able to do some of that in this community. There are a lot of people already working in this space, but often in isolation. So we really want to be amplifying a shared voice in this area. We want to also be bridging the gap between the tactical on-the-ground adaptations and the strategic long-term fight against the root causes of climate change. They're both equally important. And this community of practice is hoping to attend to both. We really talked about, the need for low cost and scalable game changers. What are some really affordable ways that schools can adapt, can become more resilient in often these really resource constrained environments? And I think for me, one of the key lenses for this is how can we come up and share adaptations that increase sustainability and resilience of local schools, of local communities, as opposed to adding stuff that actually, is a burden and is, an additional thing to do. It should be solutions that really help us thrive and increase the resilience on the ground. And then finally, we said there is a need in this annual meeting, and the different people were highlighting the need for inclusive and contextual climate education, which I know some of you are working on in your day-to-day jobs, that actually inspires nature-based solutions, and it really contextualizes humans as part of nature. We are nature too. So really kind of highlighting that. How does that get translated into the climate education curriculums so that it does improve that climate resilience and accounts for climate justice, absolutely. And the link to green careers, particularly when we talk about secondary education, there is a big opportunity to be highlighting the link to what career opportunities are available, what kind of careers are needed to shift the needle on some of our sustainability and kind of these nature-based solution transitions. So on to the next slide. We did a survey. We launched in October a survey to understand a little bit more how climate is actually disrupting education. We had 32, maybe a few more actually. When I looked at the data, it was 32. Maybe it was a couple more responses since then. Mainly from the sort of Africa and Asia, where we had the responses with really strong turnout from Nigeria. We had a lot of different organizations from Nigeria actually completing the survey, but it's quite wide-ranging set of data points. And out of these organizations that completed the survey, 72% said that climate change is significantly affecting education in their context. The other, I think, quarter said that it was somewhat affecting education. So across the board, this is having a major impact. And if we go to the next slide, we basically were asking, well, what are the major impacts of climate risks and disruptions on education? And the top risks that were highlighted by our survey respondents, which some of you might have taken the survey, so sharing back as well kind of what came out of it. Number one major impact was student dropout and reduced enrollment in schools. So really big barriers to access because of these disruptive climate change conditions. Second biggest risk was disrupted school schedules, major operational challenge. And third one was cognitive and learning impact. So directly, perhaps heat waves or other adverse events sort of directly affecting quality of education and outcomes because perhaps students cannot focus or maybe they can't even access school. A lot of these are related anyways, aren't they? And then the fourth one that was highlighted was damage to actual school infrastructure and physical risks around nutrition and health of students that obviously major climate risks will have a knock-on effect on agriculture and therefore the nutritional risks to students and wider communities. And then the top needs that were highlighted of what people are looking for to support them on this journey to improve the resilience of their schools against climate change. Number one, training and resources to integrate climate change into teaching and learning. Almost 90% of respondents mentioned that as number one demand, which is really interesting. And I think there is a lot of knowledge in the room today of people who are already doing this. So I think we can be learning a lot from each other around this curriculum design, curricular tools, pedagogical design around integrated climate change into teaching and learning. Number two need was to support and to develop schools and organizational climate action plans. Again, 3/4 of the respondents are interested in developing some kind of guidance and some kind of tools of how schools can create these strategic planning frameworks to know what to do in the events of these adverse weather events. And then information about funding opportunities and partnership. So critical. I think what we're seeing is a lot of the climate funding is quite disconnected from education funding. And actually, one of the things that we're hoping to add our voice to is to really highlight the needs of funding, mitigation, adaptation funding, climate funding that is available to actually connect that much stronger to education to enable some of these infrastructure changes and adaptations to actually happen in our schools to protect education and children. And then practical guidance on adapting schools to climate impact. So I think that, that connects to that sort of physical adaptations that will need funding and partnerships to actually pull that forward. I think that's about it. I think we've got one more slide just on like a couple of words. So when we asked people, if your work on climate and education appeared as a newspaper headline, what would it say? And some of the key words that you can see here, the bigger the word, the more times it came up. Obviously, climate education, climate change, resilience came up strongly, community. How does this work connect to the broader communities? But also things like infrastructure, climate readiness, refugee context came up quite a lot. It came up that it's also emotional. I think we do need to recognize this topic is really emotional. It really impacts us on so many levels, physical level. There's a lot of anxiety around this topic, but and a lot of possibility for hope for a better future to kind of get us out of the situation that we're in right now. There is feelings of kind of injustice as well of where climate change was, who are the major contributors versus who are the major areas which are being affected, but also I think possibilities for leadership and kind of coming together as communities to really advocate for what needs to happen around climate justice and what kind of adaptations are needed. And I think a lot of opportunity for leadership from also areas that are at the forefront of adapting, highlighting the needs and the solutions and the ingenuity, and some of the indigenous knowledge as well that is in a lot of places has been forgotten or lost or disconnected. Bringing some of that in as well, I think could be really powerful. So anyway, I'll pause there. And I think we've got a question about out of all of these things that we presented, key themes from the annual meeting, the survey, the needs, the priorities, and also just these words, like how people feel about this work. It would be great to hear what resonates with you. If you've got a story to share, that would be great as well. And I think, as Ajay said, we would love to start getting to know each other, so we feel also less lonely in this work. So it'd be lovely to hear some contributions, anything that resonates, and any relevant story that you've got to share.
Thank you, Kiara. Because we know there are many, many stories you live each day in front of you. I think while you know it, maybe you sharing it may bring something else in others here. So please do not shy away. Yes, Priya.
So thank you for allowing me to be here. While, my organization or I don't work directly on climate, what we've been seeing is just, I would say the ravages of climate in the many districts that we've been working in. So while we focus much more on school to work transitions and ensure that kids stay in high school, complete secondary education, and move on to career pathways in many districts that we work in, we are seeing a lot of climate related migration that's happening because for many cycles of drought India is largely still an agricultural economy. Many cycles of drought has meant that families have moved away from from where they are to the nearest urban center in search of work. What we're also seeing is that the land holding, the little bit of sowing that they do, they want to come back during harvest time. So the kids, especially the older ones, then leave school, go back during the harvest time, and then come back. So the last couple of years, we've seen a pretty large dropout after grades 9. Which is quite worrying because it's a little bit too late for them. Then if they come back after 2 years, it does disrupt education, their education. That's number one. Second, what we're also seeing is a huge lack of awareness of what could be these green careers. So I think, like I told Ajay, I was keen to listen in to really understand how educators are, or people who run schools and work with younger kids and families, how are they really thinking about it. But yeah, I just thought I would share that. Found a lot of resonance. And it's also good to see that some state governments today have moved their academic calendars to take into account the longer, hotter months. So there's a break now in between. The next term starts earlier, and then there's a break now. So summer vacations is they're starting later now in a couple of states that we're working in.
Thank you for sharing, Priya, and thank you for your presence as well, because I think climate, unlike foundational learning, secondary, which often shouldn't divide us, but sometimes does divide us, EC, foundational learning, secondary, while the child is not divided, but we feel divided sometimes. But in climate, there is no division at all. It's overarching, it's overwhelming, and it's ever present, right? So it will affect secondary as well as primary, as well as EC, and over in our hearts as well. Does anyone else would like to share if anything resonated? We have people here from Ghana to Zambia to Uganda to, yeah, Abhishek.
So as far Nepal works, we have a very heavy portfolio in the education sector, and like our 60% projects are of education, and we work very closely with children, obviously. And then the reasons where we work, it's for last 2 years we have seen extreme weather conditions, and we have everything we saw, and then we see that there out of several reasons for dropout of the students, like poverty or early marriages or anything. For last few years we have seen it's also because of climate change, and the reasons where we work, we see very extreme heat waves and very harsh winters. They don't see sun for like 1 and 1.5 months. And currently we are also in the phase of working in the second phase of working uh, for a proposal which has three components: education, livelihood, and climate change, climate actions in the education. So that's why this is very important for us to know everything. And so we have proposed the project, and it's almost approved with the global development group, and it has all the three components: livelihood, especially the climate actions, and then education. So it will be very much important for us.
Thank you, Abhishek. I think that's a beautiful connection as well between all the three components, which are not disaligned at all and completely linked.
And yes, and then other new regions where we have introduced the projects in the Sudur Pasim and Karnali region. We have seen lots of migrations as well because of climate change. So yes, this region is with us.
Thank you. Ina, I saw a raise of hand and then it got dropped. Yes, Ina.
Sorry, one moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm zooming in from Thailand. I'm an international educator here. I'm ethnically Indonesian, third culture kid. So I'm actually at that perspective of being at more of the privileged type of schools. At the same time, I'm noticing very much of an disconnect between what unfortunately international schools advertise themselves as and what's actually happening in the world and what we're actually doing. At the same time, I do have hope. One has to have hope in these times that with like-minded educators, like simply me, I teach social emotional learning and visual arts. My student, grade 6 student, no, 7 student asked me, Miss Ina, why are we learning about sustainability in art? How does it relate with art? We are designing healthy communities by children for children. As I got inspired by designs that look into family-centered systems and communities and design projects, and we're using isometry as our skill set. They didn't see, and these are children of factory owners. These are children of CEOs. These are children of, the tech designers. So these are very privileged children, but they do not see the connection between the earthquakes that are happening, the effect of the floods in Thailand. They just see it as a hindrance to their daily lives because it's come to the extent that they have been supported thus far that and I do not blame them. They do not experience life outside of their apartments and life outside of school. So they might be outside training for competitions, for golf or for tennis or basketball sometimes, and then they might complain that, oh, it's like we can't play outside because the AQI is so high, right? So, but then I take that as an invitation to converse. And then in the end, oh yeah, we do have flood issues. My car can get through even then lots of their Teslas and lots of their electric vehicles shut down in the middle of the floods because it could not sustain itself through. So all of these things, I hope, and I mean, unfortunately, it's become a grave wake-up call. I was just talking to my partner in our introduction that we cannot pretend that it's not part of our lives anymore. And as I mentioned it, I heard in a podcast about inner climate change and outer climate change. So thank you for that introduction. I think that we are humans, we're part of this environment, and as much as we're disconnected, to address that from the start is crucial. And that actually from that study, the most powerful thing that can change what's happening right now is empowering women and children. Not all the wind turbines and all of that combined can make an effect as starting from women and children, actually, according to this researcher, which I hope I can cite somewhere maybe in the chat, but yes. So thank you for the session, and I'm looking forward to hopefully learn more and collaborate potentially.
Ina, thank you very much for sharing a very profound observation. I think one in the beginning statement when we saw about 85 countries, 185 million children, and then there are children, including us and youth, who feel disconnected, right? So it's interesting an observation that the inequality of exposure or the inequality of interaction with what climate is causing is so huge, but each one has to work together. So it's not only between the developed countries and the so-called developing countries, it's really within our own societies. And what is that leadership gap which we are trying to cater to? So we'll come to that leadership gap. We'll hear from Suja and Yunia, and then I'll introduce something which may help us to dive into where we want to go ahead, where we want to take it further. So Suja, and please, if I'm mispronouncing your name, correct me. Please correct me. That'll be really helpful. Thank you.
It's correct, it's Suja, so that's fine. And this is my colleague Winnie. Both of us are here. Hello. So when we talk about climate, I think we talk about environment too. Yeah. So in our schools where we do the wellness content, there is this curriculum that says myself, my society, and my planet. So when they talk about myself, they talk about their emotional wellness and they talk about how they are going to move life skills and such. When they talk about society, they talk about how they are going to interact with the society, be with them, and connect with the society. And when they talk about my planet, that is where the climate and the environment comes. So the children are taught to take care of the small children from the first grade to the 8th grade. We taught simple methods like avoiding plastic. And so they find a plastic, they will come and they will put it in a bag and they'll put it. So that's where we are teaching them on the roads. There were children who petitioned the panchayat office and got the dustbins shifted from the front of the school, which was creating a lot of disturbance and dirt and flies, which were causing diseases. So I think climate is about like the sustainable development goals. It's about good health and well-being. It's about education. And as my previous speaker said, it is about women and children. We teach women and children and it goes along. So Vinny will just say a few words.
Hello, hi everyone. So I've almost already worked in schools and community related to the planet, which ma'am have told. So we also have connection in climate too, because in planet, like the topic, my planet, we have we already teached more about the things which related to climate as well as to the children, because it's fully related to children. Once they start to do as ma'am told, plastic, how we redo things with plastic and planting trees, plants and all, everything is it's coming at the end of my planet, no, like climate. So when we plant trees and everything, the climate also changes, and this also impact the children in their behavior too, and it's also impact their family too. And when they grow up, the concept is there when children grow up, the environment too grow up. So once the if a children they have knowledge about what we need to do in society, like what we need to do in planet with green, it's also impact to the climate as well. So I think this session is really helpful for us to work in school as well as in community too.
So what we think is we have this concept that as the children grow, their knowledge on the environment grows with them. So the environment grows along with the children. So the climate also have a change. So they go back and tell their parents, no, 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 you can't eat food without washing hands. And we are talking about rural schools, pan India. We work pan India, and we work in rural, very interior rural schools. So they go and tell the children, the parents, no, you can't eat without washing your hands. And in another project in Nainital, we are renovating the springs in Nainital. And how it has impacted the women is that they had a lot of knee pain, and many of them had to undergo hysterectomy because they had to climb down the hill and go up with water on their heads. So now that the springs in Nainital are being renovated, the women have taken up the responsibility. Like they are the warriors standing in front of the springs and saying nobody will dirty it again, because the number of hysterectomies have come down, the knee pain has come down. So once you impact the environment, the climate, then it goes on to impacting, like my previous speaker said, women and children are the real change makers. Yeah.
That's
And
so
thank you.
incredible.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity for speaking up. Thank you.
No. Thank you. Thank you. And I think your example really demonstrates, one, the community engagement and education curriculum, so forth, but it also, to me, initiates a shift in the cycle of disruption to the cycle of, what the positive structure can create. And once the cycle creates, you don't need to worry about so much. It's beyond you.
Community, the Learning Links Foundation, New Delhi.
Yes.
Learning Links Foundation, New Delhi. Yeah, we are part of the GSF community, so we work there, both of us. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We'll take one word from Unia, and then I'll move ahead. So, Unia.
Thank you, Ajay, and thanks everyone for the sharing. I just want to share a few observable disruptions that we have got in our network as Peace Uganda, where we run schools in the rural part of the country. So you realize sometimes when there are extreme weather conditions, we experience floods, droughts, landslides, and these sometimes damage the little bridges that connect the community to the school. And so the children can no longer access the school. So it's a big effect it has a big effect to access to education. But also most of these communities are farming communities, and the school fees is drawn from crops like coffee, banana, and when the seasons are not good and the harvests are affected, it means less children will then be able to come to school because there is no way they are going to be supported in terms of having school fees. But also in the extreme dry conditions, we have also evidently experienced a big effect on limited access to water, sanitation, and therefore it affects the safe learning environment, especially for the girls. And so during that period of the month, you'll realize very few girls are able to attend school due to the water shortages in the communities, but also in the schools. So you realize that the extreme climate changes will affect more the low-income communities, and especially the girls are hardest hit in these communities. That goes without mentioning learners with disabilities who also face increased barriers to education during such extreme weather conditions. So just to sum it up, climate change, much as it threatens education, we realize that education is one of the strongest tools to fight climate change. We cannot run away from it. Thank you so much. Back to you, Ajay.
Thank you, Unia. I think you've given a beautiful and important segue to the framework which we wanted to introduce, given that, yes, it is a receiver and thereby it is also a responder. And initially, when we were drafting this framework, we were only thinking of the receiving end. And then thankful to Sanchi and Chiara, both who are, sharing their, faces here as well. They brought it up and they said, what about What about loving nature? What about embracing nature and not only resisting it and not only responding to it once the damage has been done? And why is the damage being done in the first place? It's because we're not loving nature and embracing nature. And I think it just leads to so much more. So I'll share that framework, but we want to immediately then dive into what your leadership gaps are so that we can drive into how this community can help each other, paving a way forward from those individual stories into collective possibilities. So I'll share that. The framework we've thought of, and please do share your feedback later on as well on this, is that while education propels climate action, the climate change threatens education outcomes. So education has both roles to play. And in this community of practice, we would not want to shy away from one of the roles. We would like to see education as a receiver of climate shocks, which is the case, unfortunate reality. Schools are closing, learning halts, inequalities deepen, floods, heat waves, storms, and so much more, which you've already expressed and seen. But education can also become a responder to climate change. We have Earth Warriors, we have so many other, Learning Link Foundation, so many other organizations who are building repository of resources and building nurture-driven climatic curriculum shifts in community engagements. Can we not learn from each other? Is there a possibility for us to learn from each other and see how transforming schools into resilience hubs and not only schools for literacy, numeracy, and for transition to work, but what does it mean to live with nature and as a society as a whole? So that's a huge challenge in front of us. It's not a challenge only for us. It is for the world over. But how can we enlarge this group and optimize this group is something which we are thinking of. What is needed, we are very clear from the need assessment survey and other aspects. We need a unified voice for climate education nexus advocacy. That is not what we've discussed so far, but we want to do a few sessions on COP30 and see the space of education globally as well. We would love to equip schools to adapt and respond to the climate crisis, so the resilience part of it. And how can we prioritize education and climate policy and financing? How can we come closer to fundraisers and funders can come closer to us? Maybe they can give pictures of what their priorities are, and we can give pictures and be in the same room. Maybe speak as humans sometimes can have such a huge impact. That's what we've seen. So how do we get there as a question? Before we dive deeper into those questions, we wanted you to do an exercise. I had put that as a homework in the email so that you have one day some bits to think about. I hope you have had some thoughts. We'll put it up in the chat as well. And in that chat, I'll put that document as well. So you'll be divided into groups of 3 or 4 or 5 max. So ideally 4. And you'll have 15 minutes. And after that, we'll only have 8 minutes to wrap up. So in those 15 minutes, if you can share what is your leadership gap and what is that one way in which this community can help navigate that leadership gap. So like Ina mentioned, that one of her leadership gaps potentially is to think about what I inferred is that how students who are disconnected, how can they be more connected and they be agents of change rather than recipients of crisis and be disconnected. So that could be a leadership gap. And then bring your gap and recommendation back to the larger group so that we can then take this ahead and design our sessions which are meant to connect with you rather than disparate from you. So I'll pause there and share the document in the chat, and Chiara would be happy to move us into the breakout rooms as well. Just give me a minute. But if you have any questions, let me know.
I just wanted to call out Newman from the chat. Thank you so much for sharing so deeply and so from your heart and personal experience how this is affecting you and your family. I feel like we don't have full scope to respond fully, but I just really wanted to acknowledge and thank you for that really generous share. And Priya, I just wanted to respond to you very much in this community of practice. We're going to be talking about solutions and interventions. If people have stuff off the top of their heads, please feel free to reply to Priya, but this is very much where we're going with this community of practice. So a lot more of this to come in the future. And for now, You're going to be in groups of 5 or 4 or 5. And then how much time, Ajay, for the groups?
I think 13 minutes, so that it
Yeah.
gives the 1 minute of a buffer later on.
All right.
And I hope you're able to access the document. If not, at least one of you in the group can.
Any questions before I send you to the groups? All right, I'll open the rooms now.
Chiara and I will jump into some rooms later. Wow. I just read Noman's story. I know a lot is happening, but and do get a chance to read it on the chat. Thank you so much for sharing that, Noman. It's very courageous of you to trust the space to share it also. I don't know if Noman is here. I think he'll be joining back. But yeah, we have a few minutes and a lot to cover. In that sense, we thank you for dropping a lot of leadership gaps. Let's take a minute or so for every group so that we can at least hear the leadership gaps. While you do that, I will drop the poll on so that because people would have to leave exactly after 5 minutes, and I completely trust and it's important to feel on that time part. So I'll switch on the poll. It'll take you 2 to 3 minutes to fill the poll. That will give us the feedback for the next session. But simultaneously, group wise, if one person can be nominated and share what came out and what is that one thing we are able to do after the leadership gaps which surfaced. Sanchi, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, sure. In our group, the leadership gap that were called out was at the system level, how there is lack of awareness, vision, and ownership of simply even to acknowledge that, climate awareness, climate readiness, and climate education is needed. And at the organization level, very interesting. This stretch between being effluent focused and to be able to find resources and buy in for that, but then to bring in climate and other life skills into it, and then to find program bandwidth and funding and leadership availability for all of that. That was the second leadership gap. So we covered the system and the organization.
Thank you. And Sanchi, was there something which this community can do more actively to provide support or space?
For the community, I think what came up was again some sense of sensitization. I think what we actually covered was that what needs to be done at the community level, and we spoke about sensitization. And yeah, we were short on time to go ahead with that. Ajay.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, this is a starter to a conversation, and the conversation can continue over emails as well. You can even write to me. The document is available. You can even add on to that document as well. Which other group would like to share? Yes, Suja.
You're on mute, Suja.
Thank you so much. The current reality and the aspirational state, what we thought about was we do it in our areas, like we work for an organization. So all of us felt that on the areas that we work, we are able to implement it. But let's say when you take it as India as a whole, there is a lot of, how do you implement it pan-India is the gap that's happening. Yeah, in each of the organizations, we are able to implement. But pan-India, when you look at it, how do you implement? And so how do we navigate this leadership gap? We thought, all of us agreed that maybe we can learn from success stories, how individuals or organizations as a whole could change the entire communities, and which would lead to change in societies and larger to the nation as well. Yeah, the third one is we are bringing
the recommendation to the larger group, we thought that we could learn from the success stories of how organizations could change the entire communities and the societies, and having people having ownership to that. So the society should have ownership toward the climate change, not that we go and do something and they forget about it. So the ownership part, like I suddenly thought about it. It was not part of the group. So I think the ownership should come from the community as well. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the group 3 team members. They were really helpful in discussing this. So thank you so much.
I can quickly share on behalf of Group 1. So there were 3 different leadership gaps that we discussed. One was around just the what kind of spaces within, the school ecosystem or at home of children they have to build that intentional connection with the environment around them. So be it, through curriculum or different routines that children actually get to connect with the nature and the environment around. Then the second bit was around the theme of modernity and traditionalism, or, like indigenous knowledge. That what kind of development ideas are valued and what dignity is attached to what. And hence, based on that, what are different knowledge streams that sort of, are part of just the curriculum or in terms of aspirations of children as well as they grow up. Like, things like agriculture, is that looked at from a dignified lens or not? So that's the second bit. And the third bit that we discussed was around just the, like, just having those terms, that vocabulary for children, like based on the culture that they come from, the native language that there is, do they even have the vocabulary or just, those certain very like simple frameworks to process the crises as well, which are also more age appropriate, right? Based on like where they are and how they can be really be rooted in the language and the culture that they come from for them to even make sense of it and to even connect with it. So these were 3 different categories that we thought about. And we briefly spoke about, okay, like how can this community help? I think like the common thing was that just having like-minded people coming in here. And how do we really focus on certain actionables, that what are certain things that we can take away from the COP space and really, like think about them further in our organizations or take them to implementation as well. So yeah, I think we were mostly looking for those actionable insights to take away. Yeah. Please feel free to add if I missed anything, Group 1.
Thank you so much. I know I got dropped off for a minute or so. I don't know if every group got an opportunity to speak, but I know we're on time, so we can stay back. But for those who have to drop out, I just don't want them to miss this. We will be doing a sprint. So the whole sprint 1 is about really exposing this climate aspect, because it has so many aspects. So it has the external, internal, climate, so on and so forth. So we wanted to start with the landscape of COP30 reflections. We would like to have a speaker maybe on board, somebody who's attended the education perspective from COP30 perspective. So that's on 12th Feb. 5th March, we have these lightning spotlights, many organizations who are doing amazing work. I'll also email you how you can share more about your context so that we can put it in the Canva file, which we already have for the 6 organizations who contributed so far. And then we would love to have a more strand alignment, because everyone may have very different priorities right now. And then maybe we can create those subgroups where you can be there if you want to work on a curriculum, or if you want to work with partnership with the government, or if you want to work on the advocacy front. And then we go into that sprint 2 later on. We would also like to engage funders in time as well. Again, a community of practice is not something which is structured fully. We don't want it to be fully structured. We want you to guide it. How can you guide it? By writing to us, by speaking to us. You have our email addresses. Please write to us and share. If you want to engage more than these 3 weeks, there's a lot of space and there's a lot of need as well. So join in. That's what others have done, like the 6 organizations who have joined us. So yeah, I'll pause there. I wanted to thank everyone for joining in as well. Yeah, and if there's any burning thought which is still remaining, a group which did not speak, I'm right here, happy to hear that. But if those who have to drop off, thank you very, very much for joining today. We will have a separate registration for 12th February, which I'll send it out in the email.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions, for your presence. Hoping to be here with you for the longer journey.
Thank you so much. Proud to be part of this group.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And if we can improve somewhere, please, please help us improve.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. And then, yeah, if you want to stay back and chat to Ajay and I about anything, we're here for a couple more minutes.
I guess nobody wants to leave the group.
Great.
But yeah, if you have some immediate thought which is coming to your mind right now, did you expect this session to be this way and it is different? Please share that. Maybe that might.
And Samuel just said in the chat that group 4 didn't have a chance to share. So
Those who are
please,
staying
Samuel,
back.
please do share with us.
And I'll